मधुर मनोहर अतीव सुंदर ये सर्व विद्या की राजधानी राजधानी।
My dear students, we are going to cover in this lecture the forging defects and die design issues, some of the die design issues. The basic of forging we have already seen. As you are all aware that when you forge a workpiece for a given final shape, either in one stage or number of multiple steps, the purpose is that at every stage the forging does not build or does not develop any kind of defect, because once a defect is developed, that will later open and will collapse into a bigger defect, and that is not desired in any of the products of forging. So, one must know the different types of defects, especially in forging, whether it is a cold forging case or hot forging case, or the varieties of the forging processes that we have already discussed. The main purpose is that there should not be any defect after the component has been forged. Even defects like surface or internal defects, or some of the defects that are to develop in future, that is also not desired. So, especially we will discuss one by one different defects. You are aware that the steel forging is very common. In steel forging, when we carry out the forging at very high temperature, for an example, the alloys, steel alloys having working temperature, hot working temperature as 800 to 900 degrees centigrade. So, we come across micro cracks. Micro cracks are very often when forging are cooled down. In fact, from forging temperature, the residual stresses are also developed due to deformation. As a result, the micro cracks are developed. These cannot be seen with naked eyes. These micro cracks are very small and one cannot see by naked eye. When forgings are cooled from very high temperature, say 900 degrees centigrade to lower temperature, the difference in the temperature between the surface and the core is obviously developed, and this causes the internal stresses, because the surface of the forging cools and contracts considerably more rapidly than the hotter, that is the central zone. When the internal stress exceeds the tensile strength of the steel, these cracks occur in the forging, that is called as the micro cracks. So, to avoid this situation, the forgings are cooled in a heated or unheated pits by covering the forging with a layer of dry sand or ash. Generally, this is a practice. To remove any residual stresses, forgings are therefore normalized. The steel forging are heated therefore at around 750 degrees centigrade to 900 degrees centigrade depending on the carbon content it has, and then it is cooled in steel layer. That is what we call that as the normalizing. So normalizing refines the microstructure, it improves the mechanical properties, and it removes the internal stresses therefore. Secondly, when we come across the defects in hammer forging, very often we do hammer forging. So the forging defects in general, one can result in hammer forging of 3, 4, 5 types, like the defects which is of poor quality of the stock, initial stock, the quality is not good, so the defect may be there. The second may be because of the improper heating cycle of the workpiece. Third, it may be improper forging conditions, like the stroke, the strain rate, all these things. And the fourth could be because of the wrong forging method. And the fifth one, these defects may appear because of the uneven cooling of the stock after forging. So that may also lead to cracks, micro cracks. On the other hand, the surface defects, when the forging stocks are heated in a oxidizing atmosphere, the surface gets decarburized, and hence the surface becomes weak and lowers the mechanical properties. In this under this situation, that is, if the surface gets decarburized, in the case of alloy steel especially, the following defects will introduce. So number one, the defect that could be deep cracks because it is decarburized. The second, it may cause tears. Third, it may cause cavities. Fourth, it may cause like bond grains, boundaries. The grain boundaries could be burned like. And the fourth, very important, is coarse grain structure. It may result. That's also a cause for defect. The other defect that we come across is cracks. So the longitudinal and transverse cracks are very often, and it is very common in forging. They may occur because of number one, the improper heating in the case of alloy steel, as I said, the forging at low temperature if you perform, then also the crack may develop. The third may be the crack because of the employment of improper forging method, as I said. And the fourth one, the cause for crack, is the improper cooling of the alloy steel, as I said. The other crack, that is, we call it as a hairline crack, may also occur. So hairline crack may occur because they are very fine cracks, just like a hair or less than the size of the hair. They occur because of number one, defects in the metal, that is the ingot defect, initial ingot that you have taken. If there is any defect, the hairline crack may occur. The second one, the too rapid cooling of the forging will also lead to these hairline cracks. Another very common defects may come like if there is some kind of porosity in the workpiece material itself, initial workpiece material. If there is some kind of slag or sand impurities in the and it is entrapped, then also it will lead to a crack during forging process. So generally the slags, sand and porosity kind of defects occur either on the surface of or inside of the forging, and they are therefore called as the ingot defects. Tear is very often, so tear are as a result of number one, the forging, when you perform the forging at low temperature during cogging of the ingot. Secondly, it may be because of the bad quality of the ingot, and thirdly it may be because of the burning of the grain boundaries due to improper heating. The seventh type of defect could be your pitting. This kind of pitting defect occur due to incomplete cleaning of the dies for the scale. And lapse is also very common, that happens due to excessive gripping of the stroke by the die hops, that may also form lap. And there could be die shift or mismatch, that is also a defect, common defect. So due to the die hops, where the half of the upper and lower dies, if there is a misalignment in the, so that will cause the forging defect, which we call it as the mismatch. Therefore dies must be tightened up to the time to time, because due to stroke operation it may get loosened, so one has to tighten it time to time because they gets loose. One can see this figure here where the mismatch of the forged component has been shown because of the misaligned dies, upper and lower dies. The another defect may be because of the incomplete filling of the die, because the dimensions of the forging are not completely filled up. So this is because of maybe insufficient number of the blows during the forging, and this could also be because of the low temperature of the forging. Another defect that we call as dents are also very common, which is formed due to the following reasons, like number one, when the stock is improperly inserted in the die. Secondly, it could be when the hot forming are thrown from the place to some other place, and thirdly it could be when the forgings are trimmed, if you trimmed not in a proper manner. So when the forgings are trimmed in a badly adjusted dies, then also dents can be formed. And the last one, that could be the dent formation because of the forging sticks to the top die and falls onto the lower die. So that may also happen to cause a dent. The surface defect could be because of this, because the surface will crack due to the excessive working at too low temperature or as a result of hot shortness. Secondly, the surface cracks may occur because of the high sulfur content in the furnace atmosphere, and the furnace atmosphere therefore must be avoided, enough high sulfur content, otherwise this will produce hot shortness. The other defect we call it as cold shut. This is very common defect in closed die forging especially. It is a discontinuity produced when two surfaces of the metal fold against each other, right. So that causes a cold shut. So these are some of the defects we come across, and please note that either you perform improper forging, either you perform the improper temperature, either you perform the improper atmosphere, either you perform the improper raw material, that is the billet, workpiece material. So all these are going to be cause defects that we have already listed and discussed here. So the purpose is that any of these defects should not appear. So you follow the proper forging temperature, cycle, loading cycle, stroke, proper raw material, the furnace conditions, furnace atmosphere, all those things are important. As I said, the open die forging is very common. So the open die forging typically deals with large relatively simple shapes that are found between simple dies in a large hydraulic press. Power hammers are also used for open die forging. For an example, if you take the case of ship propeller shaft, you can take the rings, the gun tubes, the pressure vessels, all these are produced by open die forging, where the workpiece is always larger than the tool in this case. So the deformation is confined to a small portion of the workpiece, and the mode of the deformation is compression, in fact, accompanied by considerable spreading in the lateral direction. The simplest open die forging operation is cogging, as you are all aware, where a billet is used between the flat tools to reduce the cross sectional area in sequence. The spread, in fact, in cogging, one can define the spread as capital S, which is the ratio of width elongation to the thickness contraction, and that is what is written there in the natural log of the width elongation divided by the natural log of thickness contraction ratio. Like you take this case, this figure where a open die forging of the billet is shown. If you see the width and height, because of barreling of the bar, it is difficult to measure the width. So natural strain, but the increase in length can be measured successively. So if you use the volume constancy equation, one can write down this equation where HW, H1W and L1 divided by H0W0 L0, it must be 1 because of the volume remains constant. So if you take the log of all these things, one can get that 1 minus S is equal to log of L0 by L1 by L0 divided by natural log of H0 by H1. So this case, if you look at, the S is 1. If the S is 1, then all the deformation will go into the lateral spread, and if S is 0, then all the deformation will go to the elongation, and therefore S depends on the ratio, that is B by W0, and therefore one can write down the S as B L W0 by 1 plus B H W0. The metal spread law that we defined earlier as beta, that is given as 1 minus gamma S, where the beta is the spread ratio, that is the W1 by W0, and gamma is your squeeze ratio, which can be ratio of H by H0. In fact, there is a danger of causing surface lapse because of the part surface under the bit of deformation. In fact, for a given geometry of the tooling, there will be a critical deformation which will produce lapse. So, that has to be avoided. The squeeze ratio, that is H0 by H1, therefore should not exceed 1.3, which is the critical deformation, above which if you go beyond 1.3, it will cause to the defect lapse, it will produce lapse. Because the open die forging is done on large section, it is important to ensure that the billet is deformed throughout to the center. It is recommended therefore that the bit ratio, that is B by H, should not be less than 1 by 3 to minimize the homogeneous deformation. So, looking into this, if you see this particular curve where the coefficient of spread with respect to the bit ratio has been shown, you can see the bit ratio on the x axis and the coefficient of spread is on the y axis. So, for different ratio, that is H0 by W0, where the two plots, one for H by W0 to be 1.23 and another it is for 1.50 had been shown, you see it passes through a curve which is a increasing order. This happens with, so if you increase the bit ratio, the coefficient of spread increases. But as far as the closed die forging is concerned, just discussed a day before, the deformation in closed die forging is very complex, and therefore the design of the intermediate steps to make a final product, final part, requires a very considerable experience and skills, as I discussed earlier. For an example, if you see the extension of the stroke versus bit ratio, so the bit ratio, if you see, for different ratio it increases. You can see the extension per stroke. So, once the bit ratio increases, depending on the H by B ratio 0.9 to 0.8, the extension per stroke increases. Therefore, the overall success of forging operation requires an understanding of three major things. The success of the forging operation means without any kind of defects that we have discussed. So, three things are very important so that your forging is successfully carried out without any defect. Number one, the flow stress of the material is very important. The second, the friction condition between the toolings, and third, the flow of the material that is going to take place. In open, the flow is not very restricted, but in closed die forging the flow of the material is very restricted, and therefore the design part that we explained earlier, it gives the design of the ribs and other things, the gutter design and all those things. A very special problem in closed die forging is that the preventing of the rapid cooling of the workpiece by the colder dies. This can be overcome by isothermal forging, in which dies are heated up to the required temperature. The elimination of the die quenching therefore results in, number one, a lower flow stress and forging loads, the complete filling of the dies with material, and thirdly, the closed dimensional tolerances are maintained. Therefore, the design of a part for production by closed die forging involves the prediction of number 1 the workpiece volume and weight, number of preforming steps and their configuration, and thirdly the flash dimensions in preforming and finishing dies, etc. And fourthly, which is very important, the load and energy requirement for each forging operation. In fact, preform design is the most difficult and critical step in forging design. So, you choose a preform such that it is easily forged into the given impression. So, that is decision, the starting of the preform shape and size is very important, because the proper preform design assures number 1 that the defect, there is no defect or defect free flow, second the complete die filling, and thirdly the minimum flash loss would be there if the preform is proper. The metal flow in forging consists basically of two basic types. Number 1 the extrusion, that is flow which is parallel to the direction of the die motion, that we call it as the extrusion, and second we call it as the upsetting, that is the flow which is perpendicular to the direction of the die motion. In most forging, both type, that is the extrusion and upsetting, occur simultaneously, and therefore some general consideration to follow in forging and design of the preform, one can lay out it here. So, the general conditions is that number 1 the area at each cross section along the length must equal to the area in the finished cross section plus the flash. That is the basic first rule. Second rule is that all concave radii on the preform should be larger than the radii on the final forged part. And the third one to be noted, that the cross section of the preform should be higher and narrower than the final cross section, so as to the metal flow in upsetting and minimizing the extrusion flow. So, these 3 points are very important. In fact, the flow in the final step should be lateral towards the die cavity without additional shear at the die workpiece interface. So, one can calculate the forming load in case of closed die forging in a very crude manner, or as a thumb rule, the forging load in closed die forging is calculated is as capital L, which is equal to stress, that is the flow stress of the material, multiplied by AT multiplied by CT. AT is the cross sectional area of the forging at the parting line including the flash, and CT is a constant factor which depends on the complexity of the forging considered. Usually the value of CT, it goes from 1.2 to 2.5 for upsetting between the flat dies, and it goes from 3 to 8 for the closed die forging of simple shapes with flash, and this becomes around 8 to 12 for very complex shape. This we discussed earlier also. So, keeping these things in mind, one can now think of designing forging dies. We have already discussed some of the steps in designing the forging dies, but let us see this case where a dimension of a forging die is to be decided. So, one can start with this rectangular block. So, for a very simple impression die, the dimension of the die block may be like here as shown in this figure. So, the dimension of the die block depends upon three things. Number one, as I said, the length of the finish forging impression, the depth of the impression, and the number of impression in die block. So, for a single impression if you take, so the length of the die block, if it is, so it must be equal to capital L, the total length of the die block, that will include L plus 3h, where L is the total length of the impression and h is the maximum height of the impression. So, this can be used the length of the die block to be capital L, which is shown here in figure, that is equal to L plus 3h, and the breadth of the die block, which is shown capital B, would be simply B minus C, and where the B is the width of the impression maximum at the maximum load, and C is your a constant that depends like C becomes 3 to 5 centimeter. If B is up to 5 centimeter, the value of C is taken as 2.5, for B to be up to 25 centimeter, and it is taken as 2 for B greater than 25 centimeter. So, if the height, that is the maximum height of the impression, if it is taken into like 6 mm, 10 mm, 40 mm and 100 mm. So, the die block height would be therefore in mm like 100 mm, 125 mm, 200 mm and 315 mm. So, this guideline is very common, and this case is for single impression. Now, for multi impression dies, therefore, a gap of around 25 mm should be kept between the two adjacent impressions, and face area of the die block, generally it is around therefore 500 mm square divided by per 100 kg of the weight of the forging. As far as the stock size, that is the beginning stock size is concerned, we go for the gross weight of the forging. One can see the gross weight so gross weight will consist of two things: the net weight of the forging, and second the losses due to the flash, scale, long hold, sprue and shear wastage. So, if you add all these things, the gross weight can be calculated to the net forging. If you look at the flash loss, because it has to be added, so the flash loss is a function of the linear connections of the flash, secondly its width and its thickness. In case of drop forging, in fact, the flash loss is determined by flash thickness and the area. In practice, a flash loss range it ranges from around 15 mm to 15 to 20% of the net weight. It's a thumb rule. And in case of machine forged component, it should not be any flash, and in such cases the flash loss will not be taken into account. As far as the scale losses is there, because at the hot forging the scales are formed because of the oxidation. So, the scale losses is due to the oxidation of the material, and and it is a function of the surface area exposed. Therefore, the temperature of the heated piece and the length of the time which is exposed in the atmosphere is important. So, to account it for the scale losses, generally the forging with net weight which is less than 4.5 kg, we take the scale loss to be around 7.5%, and if the net weight is around 4.5 kg to 9 kg, we take the scale loss around 6%, and if the net weight is more than 9 kg, then the scale loss of around 5% is taken into as a thumb rule. Because the workpiece are to be holed, so the tongue hold loss is also added. So, in the die forging, a type of holding is provided at the ends of the forging to facilitate proper handling. So, in practice around 50 to 60 mm projection is found enough for this, and as a practice of this one can have the square for the some accounting for the calculation purpose, and around a proper holding like in terms of 50 to 60 mm is taken into. As far as the sprue loss is concerned, the connection between the tongue hold and the forging is called the sprue, and this should be very enough to pertain the lifting of the forging out of the impression without any bend, right. So, the sprue loss is generally taken as around 7.5% of the net weight of the forging as a rule. The shear waste, when the bar is cut, the wastage of the material happens, and that occur in the form of the shear loss, shear waste. So, generally for accounting the shear waste, it depends on the size of the bar, that is if it is up to 5 centimeter, so wastage is around 3%, 5 to 7.5 centimeter, the wastage is around 4%, and if the stock is 7.5 to 10 centimeter, wastage is 5%, and above 10 centimeter 6% wastage is accounted. Therefore, determining the stock size for the closed die forging especially, one can write down the equation, that is adding all these things losses as explained earlier. When calculating the cross sectional dimensions of the bar stock, the drop forging without offsetting, it is to be ensured that the cross sectional area of the stock is around 10 to 15% greater than that of the finished forging. So, in case of open die forging, one can write down the width total as WF, which is given in this equation, WS plus WS plus W plus WG kgs. So, WF is the weight of the forging, then another is the weight of the scale, another term is the weight of the cropped ends, and another is the weight of the trimming scraps. So, generally the scale loss is around 2 to 3% as I said of the billet weight for each heating. So, if you heat number of times during the forging, then you can go on adding 2 to 3% as the scale loss. As far as the loss due to cropping is concerned, it depends on the type of forging. For an example, if the forging if it is of simple shape like disc and shaft, generally 5 to 10% is accounted as the cropping loss. If it is a stepped and flange shaft, it is 10 to 20%. If it is connecting rod, it is taken as 15 to 20%. If it is lever, then it is 14 to 25%. If it is small cranks with flange, it is taken as 25 to 30%. And if it is locomotive connecting rods like bigger one, it is taken as around 20 to 30%. So this is what's the discussion about the different losses, and then how do you account for the initial stock, keeping in mind, and little bit of the die design. So we would meet again in the next lecture, and the forging lecture will still continue. So I would like to thank you for your keeping patience and hearing patiently, and hopefully you will give me your feedback for this web based lecture, so that we can take care of your requirement, and if there is any lagging in the delivery of the lecture, so your feedback is required. Thank you very much. Now let us, these